Thank you so much for joining us again. Today, we're going to be diving into a book that didn't just sell millions of copies. No, it actually created a full-blown social phenomenon in South Korea. It's called Father by Kim Jung-hyun. It came out back in the mid-90s, but its story of a father's quiet, silent sacrifice resonated so deeply that you can still feel the echoes today. So, you might be thinking, a book from the mid-90s? Why are we talking about it right now? Well, it's because the themes it digs into are, believe it or not, more relevant than ever. To really get why it had such a huge impact, we need to look at how it fits into the conversations we're having today about family, about generations, especially when you put it next to another really famous Korean novel.
And this is where things get really interesting. Think of it like two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have a modern story like Kim Jeong, born 1982. It's a powerful look at the results of inequality, what it feels like to be fighting a battle on a playing field that's been tilted against you from the very start. But then you have Father, and it tells the story of the generation who built that field. It's all about the process, the silent, often totally forgotten sacrifices of men who poured their entire lives into providing, even if they had no idea how to actually express their love.
And that brings us to a really crucial question, doesn't it? We are so focused, and we should be, on the injustices of today. But what happens when we completely forget about the struggles of the past? What is the story of that silent father, the man who was so busy trying to build a better world for his kids that he almost became a stranger in it? Well, this novel gives us a powerful and honestly heartbreaking answer.
Okay, let's get into the heart of the novel. The main character is a man named Jeong-su. Now, he isn't a hero, not in the way we usually think of one. He's an everyman. He's the kind of guy that millions of people in Korea at the time would have immediately recognized. He was the absolute archetype of a father from that era of intense, rapid change.
So who is this guy, Jeong-su? Well, on paper, he's a success story. He came from a humble background, passed this incredibly difficult civil service exam, and landed a secure job for life. He did everything he was supposed to do. But flash forward a few decades, and the reality is pretty bleak. His career is completely stalled out. He's stuck. And at home, he's like a ghost. He and his wife are basically strangers, and his kids? They just see him as this distant, disappointing figure who comes home and drinks too much. He's the ultimate provider who, in the process of building a house, became a stranger in his own home.
The whole plot is basically this tragic 5-month ticking clock. It starts when his doctor, who's also his close friend, gives him the worst news imaginable: terminal pancreatic cancer. He has 5 months to live. And his first decision, which tells you everything you need to know about him, is to hide it. He doesn't want to be a burden. But this silence leads to a heartbreaking misunderstanding. To cope with the physical pain, he starts drinking heavily. His family, completely in the dark, just sees their dad becoming an even worse alcoholic. They push him away, full of disdain, at the exact moment he needs them the most. When the truth finally comes out, it absolutely shatters them with guilt, and they take one last desperate family trip to try and heal decades of wounds in just a few days.
And you can just feel his raw despair in this quote. It's the cry of a man who played by all the rules. He worked hard, he did his duty, he provided. And what was his reward? A cruel, random, meaningless death sentence. It's that gut-wrenching moment when you feel totally betrayed by life itself and you're just screaming into the void asking, why? Why me? Now, the reason this novel has so much emotional power, the reason it literally brought a nation to its knees in tears, is because it comes from a place of very real pain. You see, the author wasn't just inventing a character, he was remembering a friend. This right here, this is the key to the whole thing. Jeong-su, the father in the story, was based on the author's real-life best friend. His friend died of pancreatic cancer back in 1988, leaving behind a young family. So the pain, the quiet suffering, the decision to hide his illness, none of that was a plot device. It was all real. So you have to ask, why did he write it? Well, it was an act of profound love and remembrance. He watched his friend's children grow up without a father, and he was haunted by this fear that all they would remember was their dad's difficult, painful final days. He was terrified they'd forget how deeply their father loved them, so he wrote this novel as a testament, a permanent record for them. It was his way of saying to those kids and to all of us, this was your father. This is how much he cared. Please don't ever forget him. And the impact of this story, it didn't just end in the 90s. That father syndrome it created was so huge that over a decade later, the author felt he had to revisit these themes. The world had changed a lot, but for that generation of men, some things hadn't changed at all.
So fast forward 14 years to 2010. Kim Jung-hyun publishes a new book, Father's Tears. By this point, South Korea had been through the massive IMF financial crisis, which completely rewrote the rules on job security. Those fathers who were in their prime in the first book were now facing a whole new set of fears, being forced into early retirement, financial instability, and this terrifying sense that the world was just leaving them behind.
Father's Tears really dives deep into this idea of the sandwich generation, and it's exactly what it sounds like. These are people who are squeezed, just pressed from both sides. Above them, they have their own aging parents they feel a duty to care for, and below them, they have their adult children who still rely on them for financial support. They are caught in the middle, this human bridge, carrying the weight of the past and all the anxieties of the future, often with their own savings just draining away.
So when you look at both of these books together, what's the big takeaway? It's this really powerful, really poignant metaphor. It's a call to remember that the progress we have today didn't come from nowhere. It was built on the silent, often totally unacknowledged, sacrifices of the people who came before us. They became the soil, the foundation. They provided the nutrients for the next generation to grow, even if it meant their own dreams got buried in the process.
Which leaves us with a profound and really challenging question. This isn't about choosing one story over the other. It's not the daughter's pain versus the father's sacrifice. Both are real. Both are valid. The true challenge is to hold both of those truths at the same time. How do we honor the invisible labor of the past while we fight like hell to build a better, more fair future? It's a complicated conversation, but an essential one. We hope we all remember that countless fathers became the very fertilizer for the next generation. We'll be back next time with another valuable classic. See you then.